Welcome back. If it is joining us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC adopts 143 billion naira presented to Parliament to fund the 2019 general elections, to include balance of 46 billion naira in 2019 budget. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo challenges African leaders to improve their people's quality of life, seeks respect for the rule of law to preserve democracy in the continent. Nigeria's gross domestic product for the second quarter of 2018 shows 1.50% growth, lower than 1.95% recorded in the first quarter. And UN report indicts Myanmar on human rights violations, says army must face genocide charges. ChannelsTV.com has more information for you. And on youtube.com/channelsweb, you can watch our videos. You could also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app has an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. The British government says it has returned £70 billion recovered from an unnamed Nigerian who was convicted of fraud in an Italian court. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Paul Arkwright, did not name the individual involved in the offence, but he explained that more funds will be released as both governments are working on accelerating the legal process. Mr. Arkwright also announced the impending visit of the British Prime Minister, Mrs. Theresa May, to Nigeria. He added that Mrs. May will be meeting with President Buhari and both leaders will discuss security, economic opportunities and the 2019 general elections.
There was an Italian court case with a particular person, I think, involved in that. A portion of the funds has been in the UK, and that's the portion that was returned recently from the UK to Nigeria. So it's in that context that the 70 million was returned. We're working very closely with the Nigerian government in seeing what we can do to expedite, to accelerate the process of returning more funds. The British government has no intention of keeping one kobo of Nigerian funds in the UK. It all must come back to Nigeria, but as you will understand, just as in Nigeria, the UK feels that the legal process, judicial process is important, and we have to go through those processes before the money can be returned. But yes, absolutely, we're looking at ways in which we can do that, and we're certainly cooperating with the Nigerian government in that area. It is quite a while since we had a British Prime Minister, and I'm delighted that Theresa May has chosen to come to Africa, and that among the 3 countries that she's going to visit in Africa, she has chosen Nigeria as the second leg of that visit. She will be meeting President Buhari here in Abuja on Wednesday. Security will no doubt be part of that conversation, as will prosperity, as will the economic opportunities here. And I'm also sure that the 2019 elections will come up, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister will set out the British position, which is very clear, and that is that we are supporting a free, fair, credible and peaceful election process. But we are supporting, and we can give you more details of this, supporting INEC in ensuring that that process is free and fair, credible and peaceful.
British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Paul Arkwright. Now to the economy. The National Bureau of Statistics has released the second quarter GDP figures for 2018, showing growth within the period lowered to 1.50% from 1.95% in the first quarter. According to the NBS, the growth was driven by the non-oil sector, which grew by 2.05%, its strongest since the fourth quarter of 2015. That sector was driven by 21.76% growth from the transportation subsector and supported by the 7.66% growth from construction and 7.59% from electricity subsector. However, then the non-oil sector performance was constrained by the agriculture subsector, which grew by 1.3%, as well as 3.95% contraction from the oil subsector. Meanwhile, the services sector recorded its best GDP performance in 9 quarters, up by 2.12% within the period. The economy has, however, lost momentum in the second quarter of this year, as the latest gross domestic product data reveals a 1.50% growth against a bigger 1.95% in the first quarter. The National Bureau of Statistics reports that the oil sector declined almost 4%, while the non-oil sector grew 2.05%, which is the strongest reading since the last quarter of 2017. In this report, Channel's business editor, Bosun Omofaye, breaks down the GDP report a bit further, looking at the advancing and lagging sectors.
The new report tracking the total goods and products produced in the months of April to June 2018 has been met with lukewarm reactions. No thanks to the sharp 3.95% decline in the oil and gas sector. Agriculture was lower at 1.3% growth and manufacturing a sluggish 0.68% increase. Outside the core sectors, the other manufacturing contracted by 3.66% in the period under review, while the financial and insurance sectors posted a weak 1.28% growth in real terms. The latest GDP report, however, was not all doom and gloom.
We still expect very strong performances from the likes of the financial services companies this year. Construction is doing quite well, but access to that market is not significant. I mean, in the debt market, you have some companies in which you can invest in, but primarily we like financial services to invest in the equity side, and debt from construction companies. I'm sure more will come up in time. I mean, we're starting to see a lot more corporate issuances, so I'm sure that there will be opportunities to invest there, and the numbers are showing that, I mean, it's growing strongly.
The Buhari administration's massive investments in roads, rails, and other infrastructure resulted in stronger transportation and construction sectors GDP, higher by 21.76% and 7.66% each. Other subsectors on the growth path include telecommunications, water supply, broadcasting, and services. Weighed on the balance, the government has a task to prevent the country's GDP from losing more weight and double dip into recession, in particular in the countdown to the 2019 general elections and the end of the administration's first term in office. Bosun Omofaye, Channel's Business News.
Let's take further look at this issue. I'm being joined live from Dublin, Ireland, by the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Mr. Rewane, thank you for joining us on the program on the News at 10. As reported, compared to the first quarter GDP report, this second quarter GDP is lower. Is this good or bad news?
Actually, it's not good news. It's actually bad news. See, when you look at aggregate output, which is GDP, output and services, whenever the direction changes, then you begin to worry about whether this is a trend or a blip. What happened, we have come down from 1.95 to 1.5. This is about 10% of the range. It actually undermines the projection of the government to achieve 3.5% growth for this year and consensus opinion of 2% growth. Based on this performance, we are lucky to achieve 1.7% growth in 2018, which is actually about almost half the increase in the population growth rate. So it's not a disaster, but definitely it's something to worry about. So why is it a concern to worry about? One is that the rhetoric you've been hearing about news and all the great things, it means that you don't celebrate too early because the time lag between when you start policies and when you get results. So basically, at the end of the day, we are saying that this economic recovery is slower than anticipated and promised, but it is not. We are not going back into recession. There's no point of having a double dip. It's only a threat that it's going to slow down, and it's going to actually undermine the unemployment numbers that are going to come out soon and inflation numbers that are going to come out in another 2 weeks.
But were there factors that were leading us in this direction, to this decline?
Yes, definitely. The coordination of fiscal and monetary policy, which is much better now than in the past. The reality is that with the interest rate at the level which they are today, you find that the interest rate sensitive sectors, i.e. agri, manufacturing, and to a limited extent petroleum, all suffered slowdowns or contraction, while the non-labor intense sectors like services, broadcasting, and telecommunication have actually grown faster. But they've done this on the back of momentum and some big investments like MTN and some of the rail borrowings which we have got from China. So that's what's happening. In real terms, if output does not increase fast enough, and in time when we are beginning to see inflation begin to creep, which could creep back up next month, then you are buying the fact that the Central Bank of Nigeria will have to, whether we like it or not, begin to consider whether to drop interest rates. Because like in Ghana dropped interest rates 5 times in last year and achieved 10.5% growth last year and is achieving 8.5% growth this year.
So clearly we're not out of recession. So would this say anything about the policies being implemented by the government? Were they in the right direction or not?
We are going in the right direction, but slower, but we are out of recession. This question, to have a recession, you have to have 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. But the risk is that when you begin to slow down, then the true problems, which is the misery index of Nigeria, is 1, high inflation, 2, high unemployment. What we are seeing now, inflation might begin to pick up. If you look at the price of commodities, in the last month, we've seen the price of rice go up from 15,500 to 16,000 naira, 50 kg bag. We've seen tomatoes go up from 12,000 to 20,000 naira, and we've seen palm oil go up from 10,000 to 12,500 for a 25 liter container. Now, what does this mean? It means that as we go into the harvest season, you are beginning to see prices increase. You need to increase output. 1, the herdsmen conflict in the middle belt of Nigeria, which is the bread basket, is beginning to affect output. Diesel has gone up to 225 naira per liter, which means the logistics cost of distributing these goods is getting higher. And more important is that we need to pay attention to the force majeures that we're having in the Niger Delta, because it was oil that got us into recession, oil got us out, and now oil is now contracting by 3%. So we need to pay greater attention to that. And the government is doing this, but the truth is that when you discount the rhetoric, you must realize that slow recovery, economic recovery is painful, and you don't make promises ahead of what you can deliver.
Mr. Rwani, thank you for joining us on the program. We do hope our viewers got enough from that interview, but we also apologize for some of the poor audio there in the quality of that interview. When the News at 10 returns, though, the Minister of Budget and National Planning commends strong growth in the non-oil sector, attributes that performance to the federal government's economic recovery and growth plan. We have more in business news. Stay with us.